right, welcome to Art with Ian. We are back. It's been a long time since I've recorded a tutorial video. I did put up a time lapse a couple weeks ago. I've been really busy with other stuff, but I want to try and find time to make new videos if I can. I'm not sure that they're going to be coming out with any regularity, like once a week like I was doing in the past, but I am going to try and find time to make videos going on from now. So anyways, today let's get into what we're doing today. So today we are, as you'll probably have noticed from the title of this video, we are going to be doing real-time painting, and we're going to be doing some Zelda fan art because I'm a huge Zelda fan, and I thought it would be cool to take you guys through my entire process from getting a comp sketched out all the way into the full rendering, final rendering. That's probably going to end up being several videos, probably 2 or 3 videos worth of work, because I don't want any of these to get too terribly long. So today, let's just worry about sketching up a comp and then going to color, probably a little bit of local color, and then calling it good from there. And then we can move on into like light and shadow in the second video, and then maybe final details in the third, or something like that. Anyways, so that said, a little bit about specs. I'm working on a 16 by 20 canvas. My resolution is 400 ppi, just a little bit higher than 300. I'm using a brush, a texture sketch brush that I made to do some sketching here, but any sketching brush really would work. Actually, a lot of times I sketch with just the hard round pressure, but for today I'm kind of in the mood to work with something a little more sketchy, a little more forgiving. So that's what I'm using to sketch, and I'm kind of down in like I'm not down at black. I like to work just a little bit of gray in my sketch brush, kind of like this. And then I'm working with a fairly large sized, it's not super small. I like to sketch kind of big and broad. So let's just get started here. So for the piece, I have an idea in my head. I'm going to be painting Link, and a lot of times we see Link, he's in some cool action pose where he's like swinging his sword, or he's shooting his bow or whatever. And I want to do something a little bit different. I want to show him in a little bit more of a vulnerable state, where he's been seeing a lot of action, he's wounded, and he's just opened a jar to get a fairy out, and the fairy's kind of circled around him and is coming up and healing him. So that's what we're looking to do. So if you've seen any of my videos in the past, you'll know that I am extremely loose when I sketch. And so I just look for shapes, and I don't like to commit. I'm just looking for, right now I'm looking for a pose, I'm looking for my anatomy. So like here's the spine, here's the front of the rib cage, hips, and you know, I am like, when I say I stay super loose, I do mean super loose, because I don't want anything to matter to me right now. Nothing matters right now. I'm just literally thinking about the most simple anatomy. Here's his leg. So the pose that I'm going for is like, he's down on kind of one knee. He's got his sword, and he's using his sword for support. So this will be his hand here, and it's gonna be like he's gonna have the master sword. So, and oh, another thing that I should point out is that I'm doing Ocarina of Time era for this. So I've got references on my computer screen above for his like garments from that era. So that I can refer to that as I go. And yeah, super loose. When I say loose, I do mean loose. But the thing is, I'm not scribbling without some purpose here. I'm trying to be very purposeful in what I do, so that I'm developing my ideas, but I'm doing it without actually being even remotely precious about them. You know, like I just want really fast lines. Just starting to get his tunic. I'm thinking about his tunic now. Here, some of the, like his belt, the strap. He's got a strap. I assume most of you probably know, like, the Ocarina of Time. It's like his most classic outfit, right? You know, he's got the boots, the belt here, you know, like there's his buckle, the belt with the other buckle kind of somewhere around here. And this is a big scribbly mess right now, so hopefully you guys can kind of tell what you're even looking at. If you do a lot of drawing, you probably are fairly capable of seeing kind of past the madness into the actual what's actually being kind of developed. But if you can't, I wouldn't blame you, because it is in fact quite awful looking right now. But the reason why I do it, like why I work like this, is because I don't want to commit to anything just yet. I just want to get my ideas out, like I said, and then because we're working digitally, I can cut things up, move things around at will, and I can resize. And once I get somewhere that I'm happy, I can then use, you know, I can create a new layer. I can turn the opacity down, create a new layer, and like tighten up my drawing if I want, or I can go straight to paint, depending on how I feel about where I'm at. Sometimes I don't even do this phase. Sometimes I literally just paint, you know, from the get-go. But I thought if I did it if I worked that way, it might be a little more confusing for some of you guys trying to follow along with what I'm doing. This hand is too big, so that's, you know, immediately that's exactly what I'm talking about when I say I don't care because I can cut things up. Like, quick tip: if you hold down, instead of clicking on the hotkey, if you just hold down that hotkey, it'll actually bring up the tool that you're holding down. And as soon as you let go, it'll switch you back to whatever else you're, you know, in this case, my brush. So that's kind of a nice thing. So like if I wanted to erase, I could hold down E. That's the hotkey for the eraser. But if you want to change what, you know, the tool, you do have to actually click on it. But it's kind of nice if you have things set up, like if I'm, you know, B for brush, and then I hold down E for my eraser, I can just bring up my eraser, right? And then as soon as I let go, I'm back to my brush. Okay, this is, yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna rough in some semblance of his hair here. And he's actually, I want him to be kind of doing this, like looking up, like actually taking the life that's being offered to him by the fairy. I want that to kind of be like a good moment for him, like he's drinking in that feeling of restorative quality from the. So we're gonna actually see a tiny bit underneath his chin. Also, this is kind of a low. Let's quickly we'll just talk about kind of perspective rules. This is kind of a low shot. We're looking up a little bit at him too, like the horizon is kind of. I know that we can see belt coming down, but that's actually because of his body angle more than it is to do with the perspective of the shot. I want him to, this is actually kind of me adding stuff to the, this is kind of me adding stuff. I want him to have like a gear, some extra gear packs and things. These aren't on the original design, but anyone who's played Zelda will know that you can get a bunch of gear in the game, and I think it's kind of a cool thing to have, you know, a little something, to a little nod to that, where like he has, it's clear that he's got some places to put all of the stuff he carries. Nowhere near enough to actually show what he really carries, but you know what I mean, just a little bit of something. Okay, let's get this hand somewhere in here. You see me looking up occasionally at my references of his gear, like of his the stuff he's wearing. Like he's got gauntlets and vambrace on. I want to make sure I'm getting that kind of established a little bit as I go. Also, you'll note that I haven't. I think I might want to actually change the angle of this. I don't know. His leg is kind of kicked out, so it's going away from us, like this way. And then his foot's then coming back towards us like this way, right? So I'm trying to make sure that the perspective of the boot actually feels correct for that versus the perspective itself. If it was perfectly straight, actually we'd be looking down at this and it would kind of go this way. But I think that actually is wrong for this particular moment in the pose. Also trying to decide how much of this like fabric, you know, folds and stuff, how the folds, but some of that can be decided as I kind of erase and or go into my next pass of the sketch. I want there to be like a fold here. If you've never worked like this before, it's actually quite liberating. I know it looks like a complete, absolute, utter mess right now, because it is. But if you allow yourself the freedom to just kind of scribble and draw like this, it's amazing how much it opens up your creative energy, because you don't have to worry about you don't care if you have a good drawing at all at this point, right? It's literally, there's nothing to care about, because you're not giving yourself anything to care about. Pretty much, to put it just to put it honestly, because it's really bad. I mean, this is a really bad drawing right now, and that is fine by me. Okay, so I probably need to think about establishing the sword. Let's erase away a little bit some of this, so we can kind of start to give ourselves a little bit of eye space for where this sword could be. I don't actually have the Master Sword. Oh, actually I do. Good. Okay, I do have. For a second I thought I forgot to get a reference for the Master Sword. That would have been terrible. It does kind of this sort of a thing. I'm not going to go too crazy with the getting this right just at the moment. It just needs to be good enough to be a placeholder for the sketching phase of the design. I think it's got a little triangle. This isn't actually this is just a little kind of like a detail of the sort. It's not actually the Triforce. The Triforce is in fact on the sword, but it's down a little ways down here. How big is the sword in relationship to him? Kind of fairly big, but not too big. Need to be careful not to make this too large. Okay. Something like that-ish. It's fine for now. I like this brush, but it's actually a little bit leggy. At least while I've got everything running at once like I do right now with Photoshop and my screen recording software and everything else running. Multiple Photoshop files with my references up and stuff. Checking my reference. Speaking of which, I'm checking my references as I go here. You don't want to show too much of the underside of that. Okay. Good there. The fairy, probably need to establish that so it's in the shot. The fairy's here. I think the fairies, let's see, did I get a fairy? I did get a fairy reference. I think the fairies have like, the ones that actually heal you have like, they're like a ball in this game, just like a glowing sphere, and then they've got two sets of wings. Their wings do something like this-ish. That's probably good enough for now. Okay, that'll do. This hand is in desperate need of attention. It's not wide enough. Let's see, let's give him more palm. Palms, like the meat of your hand, very much, it's meaty, you know, it's actually quite meaty right through here. Let's see, try and make sure I get my establish where the gauntlet's gonna go, kind of up here, or like I think it's like a glove, like a fingerless glove and a gauntlet kind of a thing. So I'm kind of combining this into two fingers because a lot of times we definitely, these two fingers, kind of the tendons allow us, the index and the pinky kind of space off from the middle fingers fairly often. So just thinking about that kind of natural thing we do with our hands a little bit as I try to get this hand into some kind of, whipped up into some kind of better condition than it was a moment ago. Also thinking about the using the shapes of the gauntlet and vambrace that he's wearing to help further sell my my shapes and forms. I think I want him to be reaching a little bit more. Right now he doesn't feel like he's reaching quite as much as I'd like. So I think it's time to get into a little bit of transforming and reshaping and cutting and the things that are easy to do in Photoshop. Let's see here. Let's just take all of this and move this up a little bit. Turn that. And now, yeah, see, now he looks like he's got a little bit more of a reach happening. I want it to be like the fairy's going up and he's kind of, you know, feeling like getting the power. It's got kind of almost giving the fairy a place to perch as well, kind of ish. Some of the fabric of his shirt. So this costume, I think I might have been starting to touch on it a little bit. With this costume, he's got like a tunic that's got shirt sleeves on it. And that's green. And then he's got like a white undershirt. And then his gauntlets are brown. Referring back to my references. Always use references to their fullest benefit, which is just don't ever shy away from using them. I don't care if you've heard from people that it's cheating or whatever kind of madness some people like to say about that. If you've seen any of my other videos, you'll know how I feel about references, but I haven't made one for a really long time, so I think it's probably fair to reiterate some of the things I've said in the past for potentially new viewers. References are extremely important in our art, and you know, like if I was making something up out of my own head here, well, I am, but I mean, if I was coming up with my own character, I would go for maybe like just references that were inspiring to me, of other types of things, you know, other like, you know, if I was doing a ninja character, I would have references of ninjas up, you know, real ninjas, not other people's drawings of them, because I don't want to necessarily be impacted, as a typical rule, too much by other people's art. In this case, I don't have a choice because Link only exists as art. There's no real Link type of a thing, but yeah, it's really important to use references, and also important to understand the difference between copying and being inspired. Being inspired is a perfectly fine and important part of being an artist. All of the things that you love, all the IPs you love, were inspired by other things that those artists got inspired by. Let's just take a look at that anatomy here. And I do apologize for like the slowness of my speech. Is probably quite bad, you know, but trying to speak when you're drawing, especially this phase of the drawing where I'm actually trying to like get a design out, is really challenging. So, okay, I'm just gonna take some of the scribble out of this now. Not gonna go too far with it because I'm just gonna create a new layer here shortly, but just enough to kind of get back some of my brain when I look at this. Okay, he's got like I think he's got like a little collar with like a laced up collar or something underneath the green the tunic collar. Okay, his ears. Since his head is tilting back, his ears are actually not going to be pointing straight up. He's doing this, and that's going to tip his ears back a little bit. I'm just placing very rudimentary features right now. Looking at his face while I do that. And then we'll go in and, like, you might have noticed that I haven't zoomed a single time while I've been doing this. And that's a conscious decision to not get caught up in the details. There are no details to get caught up in. I'm making sure of that. Okay. So that's his eyebrows, by the way, not his eyes. My brush is just too big to actually do eyes right now. Let's see. Maybe this could kind of hang down a little bit more. All right. We're just about ready, I think, to start another pass that's not as insane as and messy as this one is currently, so that you guys can start to hopefully see a little bit better what's actually going on here. Okay, let's see. I think I'm gonna go into Liquify really quick. If you guys aren't familiar with that, it's a pretty cool tool that is useful at this stage of the game for just moving things around a little bit. Okay, I'm thinking I want to push a little shape here. Yeah, make sure this, I want this to feel like it's wrapping around a little bit more. This is a fun tool to use for if you feel like it separates your brain out sometimes from the sketching mode of your brain. But it can be dangerous if you get caught up and carried away with it as like something you use too often or for too many things kind of a thing. I don't know, I just find it's occasionally useful. I think that I want this to come down some. I'm not sure that I'm quite selling the weight on his sword arm quite yet. That might be something I need to actually address in more of a sketching way than with the Liquify tool. But you know, all the tools are useful in their own way. You know, kind of. I think that using Liquify just now kind of helped me to see that I want to do that. So I'm just going to accept this really quick, and we'll see what it did there. And I think what I'm going to do is actually just grab my lasso tool and go down to about below here so I can. Okay. If you use your arrow keys on your keyboard, you can actually adjust the location of your selection, your transform selection, instead of actually clicking and moving it around, which gives you a lot more control. I'm gonna turn this. Let's see how that looks. Does that look a little bit more? Yeah, maybe. Let's go one more time. Okay. All right. let's... Oh, you know what? Really quickly, one more thing I want to put in here in the shot is the jar that his fairy just came out of, and then the actual the magic of the fairy. I want to kind of show the fairy, kind of like show its progress around his body. So there's the jar, and then I think I want to show the cork, because these jars are corked in the game. So like the cork just came out, there's the jar, and then maybe just a little bit of the magic of the fairy, and then show its path, right? Let's see, kind of come around here. And these fairies in the game are pink, so we'll do like a faint pink line when we actually do this for real. I think it'll come around the front, so that's gonna go around the back. Then this one comes around the front. And then, let's see here. I don't think I want it to go around the body again. I could come here, hit the arm. And I need to be careful that these lines don't line up. Like I don't want that curve and this curve to be the same. That's not aesthetically pleasing. So then it could kind of like tail off like that, right? Okay, I think that's... Okay, let's turn the opacity way down here. And create a new layer. And now it is time to zoom in. And make our brush smaller. I think I'm going to use my... hard round pressure size brush. Oh, oops. Hard round pressure size brush, give me a little bit more control. And we're gonna get in here and start making some more detailed decisions. I want him to kind of look like he's, like I said, he's like really feeling the effects of this, so I need to be thinking about his expression, the eye line. So let's talk really quickly about faces. See this line here? See how I'm wrapping around like that? The face, the planes of the face, we want to be careful that make sure that we're selling the planes of the face, right? And not having it just be like this flat thing. When you get to the edge of your eye socket, your face changes planes. It doesn't just keep going that way, right? So you want to, when you're thinking about your eye lines and stuff, you want to be thinking about how that actually wraps. I think I want his eyes to be closed. Which means I probably need to lift his eyebrow up a little bit out of the way. Man, it's getting kind of dark in my room. I can't see my keyboard very well. Hopefully it's not too dark on the actual video. Okay. So there's the beginnings of some expression for him there. And then because of the angle that we're working with, his nose is actually pointing up a bit. And he's got this like super 90s. I think they were inspired by Leonardo DiCaprio's hair in Titanic, I think it was. This game came out in like 98, I think, and I think that movie came out in like 97. Anyways, this also, I want to point out this pass. Oh, you know, I need to go higher with the ears. This sketching pass is not, by any stretch of the imagination, a clean pass either. It's just getting a little closer to something reasonable as far as tying down the drawing. I want this to feel kind of like the fairy's actually kind of causing a little bit of a wind type of situation. Let's see here. Okay, we got his collar is going to be somewhere in here. Have it overlapping. The strap at his shoulder. Thinking a little bit about some of the more nuanced shapes now as well. Thinking about also like the thickness of material, right? So his shirt actually has thickness. It's not just a flat, you know, it's not a flat plane, right? It's actually made of something, and that rests on the material below. And I see that's one of the things I see actually fairly often. One of the issues I see fairly often is artists not actually giving thickness to anything that they're drawing. I think this just kind of has like this kind of a color, and then laces or something like that. Something along those lines. Okay, this goes into here, wraps around. There would be some seam work right there. I've seen versions of this costuming where his undergarment, his white undergarment, is like really tight. But that doesn't really make that much sense. It would be super tight. So I'm gonna introduce the idea that there are some folds happening for mine. And that's something you have to think about when you're drawing, is taking your own artistic licenses and having your own voice in the way that you like to design. Okay, so there's one of his things on his belt. And then the other thing that I established was like a bigger one, and it's got kind of, I'll have to work out how it's actually buckled onto here, but you know, just getting my indications closer now than they were in the last pass. This is a belt loop that his tunic has on it, I think, right? Yeah, it does. Let's see, I want to show maybe a little bit more of the front of this than I was. Okay, yeah, still not quite happy with the angle of that. I think somewhere in there though. A lot of the way that I sketch is very sculpt oriented. Like you could compare it to sculpting, in a lot of ways, like just pushing and pulling, right? Okay, let's. I wonder if I should do a double fold here. Well, I can decide when I'm painting if I want to. That's the way that I work typically is I just never stop making design decisions until I'm actually really done, like until I fully sign off on the piece. This needs to have folds in it. His boot leather needs to have lots of folds right there. But that'll be easier to sell in the rendering. Something like that maybe works for a shape, for a line there. I'm not doing too much in the way of like line weight on this, because this is going to be a full painting. There's not going to be any line work in this painting at the end. I'm also just going to paint through, and I'll paint the sword over the top. In fact, I might just paint the sword on, do the line work for the sword on its own layer. Just because I want to make sure that my that I'm actually getting my anatomy somewhere decent behind that knee. Doesn't have to be spot on because the sword is in fact covering it, but it needs to be decent. Okay, again, folds. That folds too high though. It needs to crease where his body creases, right? That's, if you're ever curious or wondering about where to make decisions about some like things like folds and creases, well, a lot of times your body's telling you. I know it's still challenging. It really is challenging. Hurts your head sometimes thinking about folds and fold theory and where all that stuff goes. But your body's almost always challenging you, or I mean, showing you. Excuse me, my brain is frying a little bit here doing this, trying to talk and draw. I did not give myself a whole lot of information on this hand. Good grief. Okay. Something like that will do for now. Also gonna draw this through, I think. Just call it good. And I think the sword is just gonna come as a secondary thing. So let's actually put his pinky in here. Think about the thickness of the hand, right? Like that, right? There's actual thickness. That I went a little overboard. But like the palm, right? The side of the palm right here. Don't forget that there's a fair amount of thickness into the hand. It's not a flat plane. It's got dimension. Okay. I'm gonna need to look closer to ref, I think, for getting some of his like gear more up to a certain standard as far as the way it looks. I think I will just do this part of the sword here. Again, I'm gonna need to look at that as well for when we get there. But I think it's got this kind of a shape. Sort of, yeah, that's feels about right for now. Okay, moving on. And even at this phase or this stage where I'm tying things down with line a little bit more, everything is still completely subjected to change. I think if you take anything away from this video as far as how the sketching process is, you know, at least for me, and you know, everyone has their own way of working, but for me, the best way to work as in this composing phase is just try not to be precious about anything. Everything is just lines. It's just a drawing. It's just a drawing. You haven't been working on it for that long. That's the whole point. It's just a drawing. You've done a bunch of drawings. You're going to do a bunch more drawings. It's just a drawing. Don't worry about it. And the less you worry about it, the more it'll free your mind to just actually do what you need to do, what you want to do. Actually, more like what you want to do is actually get a drawing out that you can support enough to go into paint and be happy with it. And it's a lot easier to do that when you start out by not being concerned with the drawing, quality of the drawing. This is gauntlets. How's that gonna wrap the hand? That might be something I have to tackle in paint. I want that to wrap the hand. It'll just be a matter of what looks good. Maybe it just needs to. I wonder if there's even a strap on his gauntlets or if it just covers. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't find any references for the inside of his palm with his gear. So I'm just gonna leave it for now and get my proportions working better than they are right now, because they're not good. This thumb needs to be up here. And the palm like that. Okay. Still not good on the hand, really, but it's gonna be okay for now. We'll get in there and we'll make it better later. That's one of the things about doing this that's important, I think, is to realize that there's if you're going to paint, there's no reason that your line art needs to be a masterpiece. It doesn't even need to be good, really. It just needs to be enough to get you in the ballpark, and then the real work starts when you start painting. And for me, I've found in a lot of ways painting is really more my kind of my cup of tea. I'm much more of a fan of the feeling of actually putting paint down than I am of putting lines down. But it's helpful to have line art in a painting when you go into painting. For, you know, just to help kind of guide guide you as you go a little bit. Like I said though, sometimes I don't actually even do this face. Sometimes I literally just start with paint, but I was worried that that would be confusing for this video specifically. But I'm also worried that it's gotten really dark in my room. I don't know if the computer is like lighting up the screen or lighting up my face enough to actually be relevant, but I guess I'll find out. I might call this one. I wanted to go to color for this one, but because it got so dark, I think I might call this one right now. Or at least pause it and maybe see about coming back. Yeah. Well, we're an hour in, so. And we have the sketch. I didn't actually sketch the fairy, but that's okay. We have the sketch. I haven't detailed out the sword yet either, but that's also okay. We'll do that in the next video. But yeah, we have a sketch we can definitely work with here to go to paint. So I'm gonna call this one done, and see you guys in the next one. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, share it with your friends, ring the bell for notifications of future videos, and I'll see you guys in the next one.